Alright, imagine this for a second. You keep a secret for almost 6 full years, 6 winters, 6 long stretches of pretending everything is normal. And then one random Monday in Ireland, a 32-year-old man named Glenn Bride from Mount Olive Park in Kilbarrack, Dublin, gets up, stretches, makes tea, and decides, yep, today is a good day to confess to helping dispose of a teenager's remains. Ireland just stood there like, sorry, what now? And that is where our story kicks off. A sudden admission in one of the most disturbing and unforgettable cases tied to the Drogheda feud, the murder of 17-year-old Keane Mulready-Woods back in January of the year 2020. Plain descriptive moment, a silent figure finally steps into the light. Let's set the stage and introduce everyone like an Irish true crime cast list. First, Keane Mulready-Woods, 17 years old, from Drogheda in County Louth. He was last seen alive by his family on Sunday, the 12th of January in the year 2020. A teenager caught in the orbit of a feud far bigger than him, and a name Ireland has never forgotten. Next, Glenn Bride, 32 years old, from Mount Olive Park in Kilbarrack, Dublin. He is not accused of the killing itself. What he admitted to is participating in the transportation and disposal of body parts after the murder, a role that prosecutors say was intended to help someone else avoid being caught. Then we have the wider supporting cast. 3 other men already convicted in earlier trials for facilitating the murder. Their cases built the foundation for today's moment. And behind all of this sits the shadow of the Drogheda feud, a long, bitter conflict that shaped much of the violence in the region at that time. Plain descriptive moment, the interconnected pieces of the case start lining up. January of the year 2020. Ireland was already tense from feud-related attacks, and Drogheda felt like it was holding its breath. Then Keane Mulready-Woods disappears. The word spreads fast. People talk in shops, on buses, everywhere. A teenager gone missing in the middle of a criminal feud. Everyone feared the worst. Soon after, the worst fears were confirmed. Keane had been murdered, and his remains were later recovered in different locations across Dublin and County Louth. The country reacted with disbelief and sadness. A 17-year-old caught in something far bigger, far darker than anyone his age should ever face. Plain descriptive moment. Ireland confronts the reality of a teenager lost to a violent feud. After the murder, investigations moved fast. 3 men were eventually convicted for helping those responsible. But even with those convictions, everyone knew there were missing pieces, loose ends, people who had been there or close to there who never said a single word. And for almost 6 whole years, Glenn Bride stayed quiet. No public statements, no dramatic courtroom moments, just silence. But silence in cases like this is rarely peaceful. People talk, rumors float, investigators keep working. The weight of a secret, especially one tied to a case this big, does not just sit quietly in the corner. It presses, it scratches, it keeps reminding you it exists. Plain descriptive moment. Years of unspoken pressure build behind the scenes. Fast forward to Monday, the 24th of November in the year 2025. Out of nowhere, Glenn Bride walks into the special criminal court and says the words nobody expected to hear this late in the story. He pleads guilty. He admits he participated in the transportation and disposal of the teenager's remains on the 15th of January in the year 2020. He also admits he knew the murder had happened and that his actions were meant to impede the arrest of the person responsible. Plain descriptive twist. After 6 years of silence, the missing voice finally speaks. The courtroom reacts, not loudly, but you feel the air shift. A 6-year-old case suddenly has a new chapter. A puzzle with a missing piece finally clicks into place. And Ireland is left asking the big question. Why now? Here is where things get interesting. Because when someone holds onto a secret for almost 6 years and suddenly drops it on a Monday morning, people talk. People wonder. People ask the obvious question: why now? There are a few factual possibilities investigators often consider in long criminal cases like this. None of these are guesses about guilt, they are simply common, documented patterns in Ireland and elsewhere. Sometimes people confess because the legal pressure finally catches up. Sometimes it is because new evidence strengthens a case and the person realizes silence will not hold much longer. Sometimes it is because people connected to the case have already been convicted and the protective wall around them starts to crumble. And sometimes, after years of carrying something heavy, a person decides they cannot keep it inside anymore. Plain descriptive twist. The timing raises more questions than it answers. What makes Glenn Bright's timing stand out is how long he held out while the rest of the case moved forward. 3 men already convicted. Investigations ongoing. Public memory still strong. And then 6 years later, he steps forward. Ireland looks at that and says, all right, something changed. Once Glenn Bride says the words, I plead guilty, the entire case shifts. Not in a dramatic television way, no gasps, no plot twist music, but in a real, legal Irish way that actually matters. A guilty plea means the court no longer has to prove his role. It means his actions on the 15th of January in the year 2020 are now officially acknowledged. It means the timeline tightens. It means investigators gain clarity. And it means the story of what happened after the murder becomes just a little less cloudy. For the family of Keane Mulready-Woods, it is another difficult chapter. Not closure, this case has never offered simple closure, but another small truth becoming official. Another piece of what happened laid out for Ireland to see. Plain descriptive twist. One admission reshapes the historical record of the case. And outside the courtroom, people across Louth and Dublin start talking again. Old memories are pulled back up. The feud, the fear, the headlines, all of it sits right back on the table even 6 years later. To understand why this plea matters so much, you have to remember the atmosphere back in Drogheda during the feud. It was a period defined by fear, intimidation, and a level of chaos the town had not felt in years. People locked doors earlier. Parents kept teenagers closer. Rumors traveled faster than buses. Keane Mulready-Woods became one of the most tragic symbols of that time. A teenager caught in a violent dispute between organized groups far older and far more ruthless than him. His murder marked a turning point. The country looked at the feud and realized how deeply it had reached into young lives. So when someone like Glenn Bright steps forward after so many years, it does more than shift a legal case. It reopens a chapter of Irish life that people were trying very hard to close. Plain descriptive twist. The old feud echoes again through a single guilty plea. It reminds Ireland of what the feud really was. Not just headlines, but real families, real communities, and real consequences. After the guilty plea, the court does what it always does in these situations. It sets a date. Glenn Bride is now remanded in custody until his sentencing on the 26th of January next year. A straightforward procedural step, but one loaded with meaning in a case this old and this heavy. For the justice system, sentencing will formalize the role he admitted to. For investigators, it may help confirm parts of the timeline they have spent years piecing together. For the public, it adds shape to a story that has lingered in Irish conversations for far too long. And for the family of Keane Mulready-Woods, it becomes another reminder that the ripple effects of the year 2020 did not stop when the headlines faded. They continue into courtrooms, into statements, into the quiet moments when the country looks back and remembers. Plain descriptive twist. After 6 years, the consequences finally catch up. So here we are, nearly 6 full years after one of Ireland's most heartbreaking murder cases, a man who stayed silent through trials, convictions, and years of public memory suddenly steps forward. And the twist? For all the questions his confession answers, it creates a brand new one that Ireland cannot ignore. Why did it take this long? Was it pressure? Was it evidence? Was it conscience? Or was it simply time catching up with someone who ran out of road? We may never know the full reason, but we do know this. Secrets in Ireland rarely stay buried forever, especially not in cases that shook an entire country. And in the most Irish twist of all, after 6 long years, the truth did not arrive with drama or spectacle. It showed up quietly in a courtroom on an ordinary Monday, the kind of moment that almost feels like a joke setup. Except this time, the punchline is painfully real. Plain descriptive ending moment, the silence finally breaks, but the questions begin again.